Yo, my people, welcome back to the building. You already know what time it is. Lateness is greatness continues. And we've got a special guest. I've been hunting this man down. I've been slowly watching him on YouTube. I was like, yo, this is an ex-pro footballer who's jumped into the YouTube scene. So you're getting the best of both worlds. You're getting the fan perspective, the ex-footballer perspective. So there's logic behind it. And I was like, I want to get this on. I've seen a stream of him and DG. You guys know how much I speak to DG. And I was like, I need Curtis on. So it's great that I got him on so soon, man. How are you doing?
Bro, I'm good, man. Lateness is greatness, as you say, man. That's a big slogan, by the way. You know, I like the intro as well, but same thing, bro. I've seen you doing your thing in the scene, and when you reached out, like, you're somebody I was gonna get in contact with anyway. So it's just, you know, it's good that we can build that community vibe in YouTube, man.
100%. And I couldn't really be asked waiting for the Arsenal game. I was like, nah.
Because to
be honest, last time we played you as well, I was like, I don't even know if I'd even want to talk about that. So let's make it a random team before we're speaking about the clubs. And I think a lot of time on this platform, we have to remember, you know, regardless, even we're not playing each other, we all watch football. Do you know what I mean? We all watch football. We all watch the Premier League games. We can all discuss the transfers and what's going on. And that's what we're going to do today. Big up to the chat as well. Pulisic season. George, you're always in it, my guy. Big up to you. Big up to Alan. Let me go through real quick. What a collab. 100% what a collab. Like I said, people, we're reaching out. Do you know what I mean? It's not just Chelsea fans we get on here. Try and get everyone on, because even to talk Chelsea with a fan of another club is great for me, because it allows us to have perspective. It allows us to speak about the club in an unbiased way. And that's, like I said on this channel, we're just trying to make sure we bring as many different views to you as possible, so you can make your own opinion and form it yourself. You know my opinion on a lot of things, but like I said, it's always good for you to form your opinion as well. Bro, I said to you offline, we got transfer news everywhere.
Everywhere, bro.
Do you know what I mean? I don't know how concrete your links are. We'll go through Arsenal's transfer links, Chelsea's. We got outgoings on both sides. We've even got a little staff backroom thing that I want to go through with you and get your little get your perspective on it. But starting off with Özil, I want to get your take on Özil, because obviously this is big for me. Özil causes so much divide in your fan base, I feel, in terms of, you know, people are talking about the player that he could have been, the player that he was, the player that he is now, which is not a player at your team. He doesn't play any football. Do you know what I mean? Man, them are always saying, yo, you're ghosting out on us, like Özil, just kind of thing. I see that. But with him potentially going to Fenerbahce, how do you like? Because I get with Chelsea, we've had these moments as well where players have come to our club. We've spoken about it loads of time. You know, your Torreses, your Shevchenkos. We've had big signings that we don't know whether they've been success, failure. How do we feel about them at the end of their time? How do you feel about Özil now? He's coming towards an end. It seems like he's on his way out.
Do you know what, brother? I think overall, because of the way he's leaving the club as well, and how it's finished, I think fans will look at Özil as a little bit of a failure. I don't think it's all his fault, because equally, I think when you sign a player like Mesut Özil, you've got to build a certain platform around him. You know, he is a luxury player in a sense. He's not going to defend too much. But if you give him the ball and you've got quality around him and movement and people on the same wavelength, you can make things happen. Do you know what I mean? You can make things happen. You saw in that Real Madrid team, you know, Ronaldo said he's the best number 10 he's ever played with. You know, you don't get praise like that for no reason. But equally, I think, and I said this the other day, I think certain players, they have to play for the elite clubs. Now, I'm an Arsenal fan, so I'm giving my own team a bit of a backhand by saying that. But he needs to play for, you know, if he played for Man City now with Pep, he would still be balling. With all that logic, all that movement around him, he would still be doing it. In Arsenal, you've come from Real Madrid, you know, Di Maria when he was firing, Ronaldo, Benzema, Modric. You've come to Arsenal, you got Granit Xhaka, Mohamed El Neni, Theo Walcott, who was brain dead at the best of times. Giroud, who went 15 games without scoring, cost Mesut Özil the assist record in the Premier League. So while I have a bit of a go at Mesut Özil, and I think towards the end it got to a point where opposition were not scared of Mesut Özil anymore. And that's when I think you can see there's been a decline. You know, if Arsenal are playing Chelsea now, I know there's certain players there that I'm fearful of. You got to keep Pulisic quiet. You got to keep Havertz off the ball or whatever. I think in the end, the opposition looked at Özil and thought, he's not really going to do much. There was times when he was ripping up teams in big Premier League games. So for me, talented player, great footballer, but can he be considered a major success in the Premier League? I don't really think so. I don't think he can. He was balling for a couple of years, but then declined
off. Yeah, I think I look at him as well, and it's not it kind of is a similar thing with Torres, where Torres had big moments as well, but then did they deliver consistently on a consistent basis? And I think Ozil's time is separated a bit differently, because Torres kind of had big moments throughout, but scattered across. Do you know what I mean? But Özil was good at the start when he had Sanchez, I believe. But then, you know, when Sanchez left, I feel like Özil left as well. Do you know what I mean? It was you got, and it's kind of a similar thing with Uber. You get the new contract, big money, and then suddenly things start getting a bit ropey. I don't know if this is different mentalities, but still, it's the same kind of situation. And the thing is with Özil, is I've always said, and you said it as well. Did Arsenal build around him the way that they needed to? Did they really understand what they had purchased at the time? Because he's not going to run off the ball and make all these challenges and whatnot. You need that pivot behind him, similar to what Everton did with James Rodriguez. They stuck a Decore and Allen behind him and really shielded him and whatnot. But then obviously I remember Özil wasn't consistent as well. There was times where away from home, he just didn't deliver. He was just a home guy. He was a home. Özil was one of the first man to take staying at home, literally. Do you know what I mean? If you were empty...
Man was in lockdown from 3 years ago, bro. I'm telling you.
Yeah, I mean, he was following Boris's orders from the beginning. If you remember, Özil, I remember looking at Özil previously, and I was like, this brother's always delivering at the Emirates, but then when he goes away from home, he doesn't turn up. Certain away fixtures, when it's raining and it's getting a little bit sticky, suddenly he doesn't want to do it. But at the same time, I felt like when he was playing, you guys had an identity. Do you know what I mean? You guys played some great football. I remember that goal against Ludacris. Do you know what I mean? That was a beautiful goal. So many team moves as well. Where I don't know if it was the Leicester last game where he played, but beautiful goals. Mad goals were scored. Really good and it's hard with these players, because what could have been is always the question at the same time. But I do think now, with the young players that you got coming through, your Smith Rose, your Sakas, your Martinellis, it's good that you're moving him on. Do you know what I mean? Off the wage bill as well, because he's expensive.
350k a week. A man's playing Fortnite. It's mad, bro. But yeah, like you said, man. Like, I always look at David Silva in it, because I think he's the most similar player to Özil that's been in the league. And you look at that pivot behind him, bro. You had Fernandinho, the protector, and you had Kevin De Bruyne, the provider, who gets the ball to him. Apart from Santi Cazorla, who was the provider, but we've never had that protection. We've always been looking at Mesut Özil when we're getting attacked, like, yo, bro, you better come back and help. Where you've almost got to give him license that, you know what, you're in the team to get on the ball and create. You're not in the team to defend, although you do have to work. So I've said this a lot of time. Arsenal just buy quality players. They don't actually buy them, fit them in a system, build around them. We're actually doing a similar thing with Aubameyang now. It's mad that he's even scored that many goals in this team the last 2 years. But now, it's kind of drying up a little bit, and everyone's like, oh, he's finished. But I don't think he is finished. I just think we're not a great team for a striker to play in. We don't create a lot of chances. So, yeah, but with the Özil thing, I hope he goes this month. I don't want him here till the end of the season, just picking up that wage. So I hope they get him out the door, man.
Yeah, 100%. And really, from an experienced player to a youngster, but on our side, Tomori, do you know what I mean? He looks like he's heading out as well, potentially on loan to AC Milan. I mean, as Chelsea fans and myself personally, I was always so frustrated with the way that I felt like he was shafted out of the team, but at the same time, I look at it in the fact where if there's one player that is very difficult to openly criticize continuously Lampard on, it's going to be Tomori, because, he worked with Tomori at Derby, got player of the season. Then Tomori comes into the team last season for David Luiz, gets sold, plays a lot of games, but then he's just randomly frozen out for Rudiger for maybe a seniority situation or a status quo. And then now he's just continued to free fall down the pecking order to become from, first and second choice in a pairing with Zuma, all the way down to third, fourth, and now fifth, where he can't even get in ahead of Christensen and Rudiger in games like Krasnodar. Do you know what I mean? So for me, with Tomori, with his loan out to AC Milan, I would like to get your take on how do you feel like he's been treated? Because Lampard is obviously known for bringing through the youth at Chelsea, and so a lot of that is circumstantial with the fact that we had a transfer ban kind of forced his hand in a way. But he has given a lot of opportunities. You know, your Billy Gilmore's, your Reece Jameses have obviously started to become mainstays in the team. Even, you know, debuts for Andrew and whatnot in cup games. And we had a lot of players training with the first team last week in the hope that they would play against Morecambe. But with Tomori, as a rival fan, and obviously a man who follows Arsenal and, you know, knows about defensive issues as well. Do you know what I mean? You've only just started to get your Gabriels. I rate Gabriel. David Luiz, it's looking sticky. Do you know what I mean? Holding, I don't know about all that as well.
Yeah, I don't know about all
that. Chambers and whatnot. I mean, what do you think of Tomori? I mean, would Tomori get in your team? Do you rate him at all?
Bro, do you know what? I really rate him. I can't understand it. Someone's put in the comments here, similar to the Saliba situation. It's big ribs. It's one of them that I don't understand. You know, I remember, I think Tomori, did he get an England call-up last season? Or there was talk of him getting a call-up?
Yeah, there was talk of it. I don't know if he actually got the debut. I can't remember him starting for England at any point. Yeah. Maybe I'm wrong, but I'm gonna search it up now. I can't remember.
Yeah, but Tomori, I thought was a really good. I saw him a few times for Chelsea, and I was really impressed with him. And I thought, you know, Christensen, I don't really rate. It seemed as if Rudiger was out of favour. Zuma's recovered well, and Thiago Silva, I think, has come in as an older head and giving you that leadership. But Tomori, to me, I mean, listen, from the outside, you've seen him a lot more than me. I think he is quality, bro. I can't understand what has gone on. But like you said, Frank likes young players, so he can't have done it for no reason. There must be a story behind it. So, you know, surely something must have happened. You can't just go from the team to just being dismissed. So, I don't know. I think he's a decent player, young defender, English. You know, looks like, you know, he can handle himself in the Prem. You know, AC Milan are top of Serie A right now, so maybe that will be a good move for him. Go and defend in Italy, one of the best leagues in the world for defending.
100%. I mean, it's the perfect place to go and learn defending, like you said, Italy. But at the same time, I've watched Ampadu go on loan to Leipzig, not be able to get into their defense. He's having a rough time at Sheffield United now as well. There's so many loans where it's a massive risk him going to AC Milan in particular, because like you said, they are top at the moment in Serie A. He did actually make his England debut against a very, very obscure team, but it was last year in 2019 October time where he was playing, doing very well with Zuma. I remember some really good performances against Liverpool where he really managed to like shut Mohamed Salah out of the game at Stamford Bridge. It was Alonso who was playing left back. He was getting, you know, far forward, and Tomori was covering him very well. So, you know, he's had very big moments. Again, away to Ajax, a really good game in the back three against Ajax. You know, sat Ziyech, who's now our player on his backside and whatnot. But I'm looking at AC Milan, like you said, top of the table. You know, their defensive record ain't shabby as well. It's not the best in the league, but it's not shabby in terms of goals against. They're top of the league, 17 games, 3 points clear into Milan. So, I mean, I think he could partner Remingoli quite well, but at the same time, I'm very worried because he's very young, and he needs game time. He's been frozen out all season, and I guess it's a nice pathway onto you guys because you've loaned out Guendouzi, who's gone out to Hertha Berlin. You've loaned out Torreira as well, but Guendouzi in particular because he's very young as well. But he's actually getting his game time at Hertha Berlin, and he's playing quite well. But then at the same time, was you guys looking to bring him back or?
There was a rumor that we asked the question, but I don't think we had a recall clause in the loan deal. So I think they asked the question kind of, would you allow us to have him back? But obviously he's playing well for Berlin. They're not going to send him back. So I think that, you know, I think with Guendouzi, that was quite well publicated why he let him go. Even though you look at it, he's better than Granit Xhaka. He's better than Mohamed El Neni. You know, he's a French international, but at least with him, we kind of know the story why he's been loaned out. With Tomori, I look at it and think, I don't know where that's come from. And like, I don't know, you're a Chelsea fan. Have you heard any stories about why that's happened? I don't really get it.
A lot of people are saying it's down to like application potentially in training, and also like is he off the field? Is he as head down screwed on as your Mason Mounts and your Reece James? And we've had this situation before. And a good comment here from Nemo is that you know, Tomori's lost over 50% of his aerial duels as well. I'm not sure on the stat, have to check it myself, but I know aerially he's not the strongest, definitely not strongest in comparison to Zuma. And we did have a lot of set piece issues as well last year. A lot. Actually, the last 2 years, we've had a lot of set piece issues. I remember we was like bottom 3 for goals conceded from set pieces with like Newcastle a couple of years ago. And that was purely not only down to the goalkeeper, but also down to defenders not winning their battles, not marking. We was playing like a not a man marking system. I mean, what do you prefer, man marking or zonal marking? I personally can't stand zonal marking. You know?
Zonal is a nightmare. So if you're a striker, you don't mind zonal because if you move enough, they don't know who's marking you. Do you know what I'm saying? Plus, you've got the run on them because they're standing there. I don't understand why teams do zonal marking. It never seems to work, really. Like, it's horrible.
It takes so much experience and know-how to be able to control the zones and be like, this is my zone, this is this guy's zone. And it does apportion blame, but I just feel like for a young team like ours, apportioning blame with man marking is way easier. Do you know what I mean? Just you match them up like for like, and if you mess up, cool, it's on you. Do you know what I mean? If your man scores, that's a wrap for you. Do you know what I mean? And it's not always a fact where I know Tomori's not the tallest, but it's not always a fact where you have to aerially be superior to your opponent. You can just nudge them. You know, there's little tricks in the book. I'm sure the very experienced players will tell you. Do you know what I mean? That you can do in terms of getting someone off their balance and whatnot to disrupt the header and make the header more difficult for them. So I have to admit that is a good point. It's a very good point. But again, when you look at the likes, it's a good point as to why he's not starting. But again, like we was touching on, the point as to why he's like just completely shafted out the team is nuts because Christensen we've spoken about, not the most convincing defender over the years for Chelsea. Hasn't really for me hit the heights that he was meant to. In terms of commanding his box, his organization, his speech in it as well. And then when you look at Rudiger as well, I've had question marks over him, even though he's in a decent run of form at the moment. So it's a sticky one. But back on Guendouzi as well, because he is playing very well at Hertha Berlin. Is that a player that do you see a future for him? Because you touched on it with Saliba as well. I don't know the ins and outs of the treatment with Guendouzi, but I know with Saliba, I've been like, yo, what's going on here? This brother, another very young centre-back coming from France. Loads of, great talk about him as the next big thing coming out of France in terms of centre-backs. His partner's doing very well at Leicester now as well. But he never really got the chance. Do you know what I mean? I remember this little interview with Lacazette where he was talking about, I don't want to be hyped up because I ain't playing. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm not playing. So don't say, oh, you're happy to be at Arsenal or this stuff. I'm actually not playing any games, so I don't feel like an Arsenal player. Are you disappointed with the way that's gone with Saliba? Because it's mad.
Yeah, really disappointed. I mean, at least in the Tomori situation, you can look at it and say, all right, he's not playing, but your 2 centre backs are decent. Do you know what I'm saying? So at least you've got that to fall back on. We're actually playing people in front of him who we're like, yo, what's this brother playing for? Like, we just give Rob Holding a 4 or 5 year, a 4-year contract of a 1-year option. Rob Holding. Do you know what I mean? And I'm like, but you're telling me Saliba can't. Saliba hasn't played 1 game this season. Not 1 game. We signed him.
Dundalk in the Europa League.
Dundalk, brother. You know what I mean? Me and you could probably go and play centre mid against Dundalk. You know what I mean?
I've seen them. Brother, they're not far down the road for me.
That's not far from me. You know what I mean? And we got this brother, and then we signed him, loaned him back for a year. He comes back after a year. Then he tries to loan him out on deadline day back to that club. They don't get the paperwork done in time. And then he doesn't register him to play in the Europa League and doesn't pick him in the Premier League for the whole 6 months. And then he loans him out in January. It's like, trust me, Arsenal is just one of them clubs. They make decisions no one can understand. Like Guendouzi. All right, Guendouzi's come from France. He was in the 2nd division. He gets a move to Arsenal. They give him 50 grand a week. He gets called up by France. So now he's a French international. Imagine at 19, coming from French 2nd division. You're now at Arsenal and you're a French international. You're going to have a little bit of swagger and maybe a little piece of arrogance about you. But
it was turned around for him.
Yeah, do you know what I'm saying? But as a manager, you're supposed to handle that and nurture that. But I felt like with Arteta, he came in and it was almost like he was sitting in a burning building. He had things going off everywhere. Özil, is Aubameyang going to sign a new contract? Can I get Thomas Partey? I got Guendouzi doing madness. And I think he just thought, get all the problems away from me. Like any problem, get it out the door. And I think a more experienced manager would have probably kept Guendouzi and tried to work with him. My hope with him, he's having a year in Germany. His girlfriend's about to have a baby. And I think, when you have a kid, it does mature you as a person. So I'm hoping, this year away and having a kid will make him grow up, because I do think he's a better player than Xhaka and El Neni and Willock and players like that. But he's only got a year left on his deal. So to keep him, they're probably going to have to give him a new contract. And, Arteta hasn't spoke very positively about him. So I wouldn't be surprised if we sell him in the summer.
Yeah, it's a weird one because it felt very much like an Arsene Wenger type signing. Do you know what I mean? Where you're getting him from the depths of League 2. Do you know what I mean? This brother, do you know what I mean? This brother's, he for me, he looks so good on the ball. I do struggle where to really position him in the midfield, like where's his best position. But he's young. Do you know what I mean? That comes part and parcel of being young. There is talent there. But then when you look at like players like Xhaka who've been stuck with for so long, and for me, like there's been so much animosity between the fans and Xhaka to what I struggle to understand with these. Arsenal and Chelsea seem to be trying to build, right? A lot of young players coming through, but then every now and then there's moments where, and maybe it's just the characters aren't right for what the managers want in terms of the young players, but every now and then a young player just gets turfed. It's like, they're quality, but again, it must be a mental thing, or it must be something that's not aligning with what the coach wants in Guendouzi or Tomori's, because the plan is to build long term, isn't it? But then you get your man like Xhaka that get to stick around for a bit longer than maybe you'd expect them to, and you sign Willian as well, which doesn't really make any sense in terms of a long term future. It's a strange one for me. But again, when it comes to Guendouzi, I just think if first of all, you have to let him have the whole season. Do you know what I mean? I'm not the biggest fan of pulling players out of their loan. You've already shafted them, and then like to bring them back halfway through when it's going well, it's like, oh, we need you back. It's like an ex, isn't it? It's like, yo, I'm doing good over here. Now suddenly you want me back when I'm mid contract. What are you doing? And it's your new thing now, isn't it? She wants to come back. You know what I mean? Everybody wants what they can't have. Do you know what I mean? When Guendouzi's out scoring goals for Hertha Berlin, suddenly there's reports coming out he needs to come home. Nah, if I'm Guendouzi, I'm saying, you lot stay there. Do what you're dealing with El Neni and Xhaka. Do your thing, and I'll do my thing, and I'll see you in the summer. It's a different situation with us in terms of Ampadu, because he's not actually getting any game time at Sheffield United, and they're bottom, I think. So maybe that relationship does need to break up a little bit. But I mean, there's a really interesting story that came out for Chelsea recently, and I want to delve into it and also delve into Arteta as well and his backroom staff. And if you think, because obviously it hasn't been the greatest season for you. It's not the greatest season for us either. I mean, we're both sitting 11th or 9th. It's not exactly paradise, is it? But there's where are you? First of all, I guess before we get into that, where do you stand on Arteta at the moment?
Oh man, I mean, do you know what? I got to a point where I felt like I wanted him out. I got to be honest. About 4 weeks ago, I was like, we was 15th, and you know what? I heard you say this on one of Turkish's shows. Actually, you said, because I think Turkish was asking you about Arteta, and you said something about there's a certain line that if you kind of fall below that like question, you know what I mean? You said, I don't really want to say Lampard out, but if you fall too low, you've got to start asking that question, having that fall. I looked at it like Arsenal Football Club. We still, as a club, consider ourselves one of the giants of English football, even though, in recent times we haven't really shown it. I looked at it, I was like, 15th. You can't get away with that. You know what I mean?
There's got to be consequences to a man's actions.
There has to be. Like me, if Chelsea were 15th, I think Frank loses his job. I think Solskjaer loses his job. So I looked at it like, how can we call ourselves a big club and be 15th and be talking about he needs time? He needs time to do what? Get us 10th? Like, we're supposed to be making progress. So, but I've got to the point now where I'm like, do you know what? Because of how the football club operates, I would have no faith in the recruitment to actually go and get a proper manager if he went, The fact we even hired him in the first place when there were big managers available, left me in a position where I was like, this club we haven't got owners that are trying to win. They might say they want to win, but they're not trying to win. You have to back that statement up with action. Roman Abramovich wants to win. You know, sometimes he's a bit trigger happy with the manager, but everyone knows his intention. You can see that with the Man City board as well. I'm at the point now where it's like, you know what? We've just got to stick by Mikel Arteta. It's a long-term rebuild. They've given him a long contract. They've upgraded him from head coach to manager. We've got 5 players who are out of contract in the summer on big wages. So we can finally get rid of that dead wood. Özil, David Luiz, Socrates, Kolasinac. We've got nearly £1 million in wages. They need to buy quality in the summer. I think in the Premier League, this season's a write-off. We're not getting top 4 this season. I think the most we can do is win a trophy. If we can nick the Europa League, which even that's going to be difficult. You know, there's good teams in there, Man United and that. But I think it's more a long-term rebuild now. I think Arsenal fans, we're going to have to be very patient with Mikel Arteta. So, look, I wanted him out. It was a little bit reactionary, but I felt like we went beyond where we should have gone. And I think his man management skills have been poor as well. But ultimately, he's learning on the job. How can I criticize someone who's never been in that situation? So that's why I look at the board again. I think he's going to be here for a couple of years, but it could be a dark road for Arsenal fans, man. I'm telling you.
Yeah, you want to see that progress quickly. Do you know what I mean? Or at least you want to see signs of progression in terms of, you know, is there because it's very easy to say, you know, trust in the process, but the process has to be going in the right way. Do you know what I mean? It's not just trust any process here. We don't just put blind faith into any old process. You're trying to make sure the process has stages where it has levels of progression where you can be like, okay, cool, we're still going in the right direction. There's checkpoints. Do you know what I mean? I think, you know, the latest report that came out for Chelsea was Avram Grant coming back. Obviously, he managed us after Mourinho left the first time. And it's very interesting, the consensus that's been gathered from the report, because a lot of people are saying that, you know, there's 2 sides to it. A lot of people are saying that potentially he's coming back because Roman's not sure with Lampard, and he's going down the route of, let me bring in someone that could potentially be an interim manager if things were to get worse. And he's been interim manager before. He's got the experience. When I look at Avram Grant in terms of, I did want and tweet out a couple of weeks ago, I wanted an experienced coach brought in, you know, more experience in the coaching staff. I feel like our coaching team was quite young. And again, you spoke on it. It's very hard to criticize people who've never been in this situation before. So that goes for Lampard, you know, goes for Jody Morris, Edwards. These guys, this is all the first time they've been at this level of football coaching. They've all done their academy. You know, they've all been very good coaches at that level. You know, they're very talented coaches in player youth development and whatnot, but they've never been at this level under this amount of pressure. It's why last season when Jody was taking shots at Mourinho, I was like, don't know if you want to do that, boss. Do you know what I mean? You go for it. I admire the balls on you, but it's a little bit disrespectful to be trying to take shots at Jose Mourinho in his own den. Do you know what I mean? This is his field, managing clubs. Do you know what I mean? So you're kind of stepping on toes here. But for me, with Avram Grant, there's that side of the coin where it's potentially that, and then there's another side where it's like maybe he's there to monitor Frank, because again, you touched it with the experience. Roman is a winner. Do you know what I mean? He wants to win. Of course, there's a process to it. You'd want long-term success at Chelsea. You wouldn't want to just have these yo-yo seasons. Well, I wouldn't anyway. I'd like to see us challenging on all fronts in the future, year on year. And to do that, you know, it seems the way to go is to obviously build. Do you know what I mean? You need to build now. It's not just hire and fire. You look at Liverpool, you know, they built. But the difference in Liverpool is that they built with a coach with experience. You know, they built with a coach that had already his ideas and philosophies in place at previous clubs before he got to Liverpool. So we're doing it a different route where we've gone with Lampard, amazing pull power. You know, he seems to be able to bring any person to the club, but he is still learning on the job. And the other thought pattern is that maybe that Avram Grant's coming in to not only, I don't think he's going to be able to, you know, he has got coaching experience, but he's managed Chelsea for one season. And I think a lot of that season was Drogba, Terry, Lampard, you know what I mean? Probably still using the same tactics with Jose Mourinho. That's what was reported anyway. And he was kind of just galvanizing the group and keeping them together. And obviously did great. You know, we reached loads of finals and whatnot. But then there's other managerial experiences like West Ham and Portsmouth. So it's not exactly the creme de la creme. The other side of it is that people are saying he's there to spy. Do you know what I mean? He's there to to check on Lampard and say, listen, are you doing your A's and B's and your C's? You know what I mean? Are you on your P's and Q's? Are you doing what you're meant to be doing? Because am I seeing progression? I report back to Roman. A lot of people are saying that maybe he's the guy between Roman and Frank now if he comes in. And a lot of other people are just saying it's just experience to help him out, and it's just another sign that we are trying to back Lampard further. But for me, for in terms of coaching, obviously a former player yourself, I want to dive into it because I feel like a lot is spoken of these days as, you know, managers that maybe their position is undermined, right? And we speak about individual brilliance and, you know, Zidane, Real Madrid, and all these things come up as well. How much is he really, you know, tactically influencing that team, or is it just individuals coming together to win three, you know, back-to-back Champions Leagues? How important is top coaching at the top level? Because I made this comparison. I want to get your take on it. The table is very condensed, right? We've got a lot of great managers at Southampton, you know, Everton, Sheffield United last season were very good under Wilder as well.
Yeah.
But then you've got a lot of inexperienced managers at Arsenal and Chelsea as well. Do you think that's the reason why the table is more condensed, in the fact that, you know, the smaller clubs have managed to catch up in a sense?
Yeah, because do you know what? You look at it now, and I'm thinking now, obviously Chelsea got Lampard, Arsenal, Arteta, Ole at Man United. You know, that's three of the biggest teams in England with managers that I think most people are still unsure about those three managers. So we're usually, you know, there's been games where I've seen Arteta get, you know, tactically outdone by Dean Smith at Aston Villa. You know, where Arsene Wenger probably wouldn't have been outthought by him because he's got such a great understanding of the game. So you're now seeing big clubs who haven't even got elite managers. And I think when you look around Europe now, there's such a shortage of top managers. You know, if you think beyond Pep and Klopp, you know, Ancelotti maybe, Mourinho possibly, there's not many top level managers in Europe anymore. So I think everyone's trying to find their own manager. I think that's why, you know, you've seen Chelsea go for Lampard, Arsenal, Arteta, Solskjaer at United, because they're going, I can't see an elite manager out there in Europe that I can just go and cherry pick. So they're trying to discover it with their own manager. So yeah, I think that's part of the reason why the league is so condensed. And when I look at Lampard, actually, the funny thing was, at the end of last season, I looked at Lampard, I thought, he deserves a lot of credit, you know, because he brought a lot of young players through last year. Tammy Abraham, Mason Mount, James, all these players, Tomori. He gets top four. On top of that, you lost Hazard, your best player, and a transfer ban. I looked at it, I thought, he's done a good job there, a really good job. All of a sudden, he gets this 200 million. I believe, I saw a report, I think Chelsea spent more than anybody in club football in the summer. I don't think any major club spent more than Chelsea. And sometimes you're giving yourself more problems. You know, I looked at one or two of those signings that Chelsea made, and I thought, do you really need to do that? Do you actually need that player? You know, like when you play Football Manager and they give you 200 million. You spend the whole 200 million in it. Let me just spend
100. You don't leave a single penny to waste on that game.
I don't leave a penny. I might even go over the 200 million.
100%. You know when the little dash comes and the little red minus and whatnot, and it's
Some of them deals with Frank, I think, did you need to sign all of them players? Like for me, I don't know. You know Chelsea better than me. I looked at Kai Havertz, very talented player. There's no doubt about his quality. I feel like the role he plays, did you really need him? You know, I feel like Mason Mount plays a similar role, not identical, but kind of in between the lines, between the striker and the midfielder. Such a huge outlay on him as well. I just think, you know, that signing puts huge pressure on Frank for him to deliver. So I think, you know, sometimes you can have too much money, too many options. But back to your point about Avram Grant, I think if Frank was the one asking for him to come in, then that would be a positive. Maybe thinks, you know, an experienced head. But from the outside, I don't think Frank would be asking for him. I've met Frank Lampard a couple of times, actually. And just the general impression of the man, he seems very sure of what he wants and what he likes. You know what I mean? He doesn't strike me as somebody that would be like, oh, can I bring in Avram Grant for a bit of experience? You know, he was kind of raised under Mourinho as that strong personality. He was at Chelsea for so long. I just think he probably wants his boys around him, you know, them young coaches. He wants to be the man in charge. He wants to do it his way. So to me, Avram Grant coming in screams of Abramovich saying, listen, go and keep an eye on what's going on the training ground, man. And if things get a bit techie, you know, you might have to take it till the end of the season. You know what I mean? So I think that's slightly alarm bells ringing for Frank, you know, because you know, I don't think I would want Avram Grant watching over my training session if I was Lampard. But
yeah,
you know, I do agree. I think some of these young coaches, they should, you know, maybe Frank should have taken an experienced coach anyway. You know, one thing that I give Solskjaer credit for, he got Mike Phelan as a coach who was Ferguson's assistant, and that kind of know-how and to be able to lean on someone like that as a young manager has got to be priceless. So, you know, it's something I've questioned Arteta about as well. You know, his coaching staff don't seem to say anything. They don't do interviews. You know, some of them came from Brentford. It's like, so yeah, I think having experienced coaching staff can definitely help.
Yeah, and I mean on Kai, I think the thing is with Kai is that Chelsea, they spent a lot, but they did get very good value for money, I felt, in the market in terms of the amount they paid for the quality they got of the players. But like you alluded to with last season, I think last season Frank was more. He still had headaches, but it was really in it with formations more than it was the players, because he didn't have an illustrious of different things to work with in terms of player you know, ability and different, you know, now he's got left footers on the wing. He never even had that last year. It was just all right footers. So his team was a bit one dimensional last year, and he tried to, you know, give the element of surprise with formations. But there were some really good games, you know, tactically for me that he showed last season, especially against some big clubs. You know, Arsenal away, you know, did really. I know you guys went down to 10 men, I believe. I'm not sure, but no, yeah, I think we went
down to 10 men at Stamford Bridge.
Stamford Bridge, yeah.
It was at the Emirates, didn't you?
Yeah, Emirates. He brought on Jorginho. I liked that change. I thought that was quite proactive of him.
Changed the game.
Yeah, 100% changed the game. I remember Lamptey even came on in that game as well. And then you had, you know, Tottenham away. He had a really good game there as well. So you know, Ajax. He's had some standout games for me as a coach where I say, okay, cool. You do know what you're doing in some respects, but then at the same time, I have asked, like, okay, do we need experience in the coaching team? Like you said, could you have brought in a Steve Holland? I know he's with England, but could you have pulled a few strings there? Because experience, we speak about experience on the football pitch. You know, Thiago Silva, what a difference he's made. Barry is an experienced coach. He came in for the defensive setup. Well, then we don't speak about, you know, experience in the coaching and how that potentially, especially in a unique season like this, where no manager's gone through this before, let alone an inexperienced manager. Would some experience have helped him? So those are the things that kind of go through my mind when we look at those aspects of the game where I'm like, could you know, maybe Avram Grant coming in, maybe it is for some experience to help you out. But as you said, from knowing Lampard and from what I've seen as well from his press conferences, he does seem to know what he wants. So it is a strange one where you've got an older kind of guy just like looking over you when you're trying to take your, you know what I mean? That kind of, it's a very strange one. So I'm not really sure how I feel about it in terms of him coming in. I just know that I did want some experienced coaching coming in to help him out, to help Frank out. And like I said, I can see, you know, with the signings like you alluded to, we definitely brought in a lot of players, but I do feel like we needed a squad overhaul because there were so many players coming towards the end of their contracts. William, Pedro, you know, so many older players coming towards the end of their time, and a lot of dead wood in that team that I just didn't feel like was going to take us to the next level in terms of your Ross Barkleys, your Batshuayis, you know, so many players. You know, even Marcus Alonso is still here. We've still got so much dead wood in the squad. Even Drinkwater still hanging about in the under 23s, kicking up man against Tottenham. You know what I mean? I don't know if you saw that. That was wild. Yeah,
that was wild. Drinkwater's done well for himself, man. You know, his career was kind of disappearing. He goes to Leicester, wins that title. Nicks a move to Chelsea. He must have got 4 or 5 year deal. You know, he's never going to play for Chelsea, but he's just chilling. He'll probably go on loan until the end of his contract, you know, and just pick up that dough, man. But it's crazy, man. I was thinking about, you know, Arsenal and Chelsea, like, you've bumped us a few times in the market as well. And we've hooked you up. Actually, we gave you Ashley Cole, one of the best left ever. You took Giroud, who's been, Giroud's been good value for Chelsea, and he really, for what we paid for him.
Yeah.
Whereas we took Peter Cech, who, we got him when he was kind of an old man, couldn't move.
Yeah.
David Luiz, who's, you know what David Luiz is, and Willian's just, he's very on top of the cake now, Willian, Willian's ruining us now, bro. What do you make? I just want to ask you quick, what do you make of Willian? Because I was looking at his stats, right? Last season was his best season in terms of goal contribution since he's been at Chelsea.
Yeah.
He's come to us this year. We've had one good game from him against Fulham. Like, is he that bad? Like, what's the problem with him?
Do you know what? Yeah, last season was probably his best season at Chelsea, and still the majority of the fan base probably wanted him gone because we understood what it was. It was a Fuguzi. It was a facade. You know what I mean? It wasn't real. It was lies. It was a false image. And the reason why I say that is because we've had him for 7 years and he never had output like that. People speak about a season where we finished 10th. I don't know if it was 14, 15. Help me out in the chat if I'm wrong there. But it was one of them years, 5-6 years ago. He had a good season because he scored a lot of set pieces and whatnot. So he had good stats, but his stats have always been poor. So a lot of people who like Willian say that you need to look at him differently because he's a right foot on the right wing. So that's a difficult situation in the Premier League against low blocks and whatnot to get goal contributions from. They say that if he was on the left cutting in, he would have, done more from a statistical standpoint. And also he was there to bring a defensive stability and balance to the team, which made us lopsided naturally because Hazard had to do more attacking. But for me, I never wanted us to be a lopsided team. I never wanted us to have a defensive winger, in the sense. Yes, the wingers need to get back and have their defensive responsibilities, but going forward, they need to not be killing attacks. They need to be up there with their decision-making for cutbacks and crosses. They need to be able to take their chances as well and be clinical. You see the front threes now in the modern era where they're trying to win league titles. Their front three all contribute, and Willian never did. Willian never did. His stats were always shambolic. And the reason why last season, for me, he had a good season is because he had something to fight for. He had a contract to fight for. He wanted to stay at the club. It was well reported that he wanted to stay at Chelsea. He wanted a 3-year contract from Roman. He's got a restaurant in London with David Luiz. We all know that as well. So he can cook up some fajitas as well. But fair play to him. He's doing 2 jobs in one. Do you know what I mean? It's not easy out here. Most people can't even get the 1 job during the lockdown. This brother's got 2. Do you know what I mean? So he's putting in ridiculous shifts. But at the end of the day, it was a facade because the brother was playing for a contract, but he was always, for me, going to drop down back to his normal level. And I look at how we've improved on that right hand side, whether it be Ziyech or Hudson-Odoi. Both of them have better output. They're more creative. They've got a better eye for a pass, better crosses of the ball, and in time, I'm sure the shooting tech will be above Willian as well. But what Willian always brought was his defensive work rate. And even for Arsenal, I'm seeing he's actually not that, he's looking a bit lazy at times. Do you know what I mean? And I just think that just comes down to the fact that he was never the main guy anyway at Chelsea. He was never all this he was hyped up to be. And also the fact that you've given him a 3-year deal. He's got nothing to fight for. Brother's made his bread until 36. So he doesn't have to really care too much. Do you know what I mean? And if he's got this so-called love for Chelsea, which I think he does love Chelsea, then playing for Arsenal was never up there in his high, up there with the top of his demand. So I think you've just given him the bread. And much like Aubameyang, when you give them the bread, suddenly maybe the motivation dries up and you get these patches of form. I think Aubameyang, maybe you could tell me a lot better than I would as a Chelsea fan, but I don't know what's going on with him either since he's got the new contract, but he's gone off the boil as well. So I do worry, man. I like Chelsea's policy that they had where they only gave 1-year extensions to these 30 plus, because not only is it a mentality thing, but these guys can drop off in an instant. You know what I mean? A little turn of pace, you lose a little bit of half a yard of pace, and suddenly the world can collapse. Gary Neville spoke of it. Do you know what I mean? When he retired. So I don't know, man. Willian is not the guy, bro.
No. Well, they got worse. Like Cech, I was like, all right, we were desperate for a keeper. All right, I get my head. Then it was Luiz. It was like, bro, this guy's getting sent off. But then Willian, this one's just topped it up for me. Like, and the fact we gave him 3 years, and I think his agent was saying like, oh, Chelsea have offered him 2 years. but he'll come to Arsenal if you give him 3. And I was thinking, I don't even think Chelsea would have offered him a 2-year deal. Like, I feel like his agents just played us, man. But yeah, we're stuck with him as well. I don't see any way how we're going to get him out the door as well.
I don't think you will, bro. I don't think you will. I really don't. And there was a good question there from Pulisic season in terms of injury-prone wingers. I mean, Chelsea have got a lot of players that have had issues with injury. Pulisic is injury-prone. Hudson-Odoi had a massive Achilles injury. Whether he's injury-prone in his career, I'm not as worried about. It's crazy, but I'm not as worried about Hudson-Odoi being injury-prone long-term like I am Pulisic, because Pulisic has had loads of little niggling injuries throughout his whole career from youth. And same with Loftus-Cheek in the sense as well. Whereas he had a big injury as well, but he also had back issues when he was developing into a man as well. So there's a little bit more issues there. With Hudson-Odoi had a big one. Ziyech has had some injuries this season as well, and that's why, because we've had a lot of issues with injuries with our wingers, I did call for a secondary formation to be worked on behind the scenes. Hopefully, we had a free game against Krasnodar. I was hoping to see a diamond, not long term, because I've always said I like the 4-3-3, but I wanted a diamond where we don't have wingers, because not only does Werner, do better for me in a 2-striker system, but also the fact that we don't know when our wingers are going to get struck down. We do have to manage them. And then when we don't have wingers, or when we have 2 wingers missing, which is very, it's not a wild outcome. Do you know what I mean? For us, if I have 2 wingers injured, it's a normal day at the office at Chelsea Football Club. So for that, when that happens, what do you do? And for me, it would be lovely. Like I said, I spoke about Ancelotti when he played the diamond. I loved it. Brought some of the best football I've seen. Lampard's worked under it as well. Not saying that he's going to be a master in coaching it, but this is where the experienced coaching comes in. Maybe bringing a man that has, different. Just for me, and not to go back onto the topic too long, but I feel like a lot of the backroom staff sing from the same tune, which is a good thing. There's a cohesive idea. They want to build the squad in one certain way. They probably, have a similar ideology on how they want the club to go. But I feel like in a room, you need someone to just throw in a different opinion. And do you know what I mean? Because someone maybe that knows another... Lampard knows 4-3-3. He played in it. But maybe someone that knows another formation and is an expert in those tactics would help, because then in moments of hardship, you can spring off that. Do you know what I mean? And we know Jody and Edwards really just went, for me, with formations, we were playing the first team to mirror the first team. So when we had Conte, they played a back 3 in the youth, and we had wing backs, and that's probably why our young fullbacks are so good going forward. They kind of just went with the formation, as they should, the formation being played in the first team, to give the youth the best chance to succeed under that manager, to step up. But there's nobody with a real, maybe a real knowledge for a different formation, like a diamond, where, okay, cool, we don't have any wingers available. Let's try the diamond, or against Krasnodar in a free game where we ain't playing for points because we've already topped the group. This is what I'm alluding to. So when people are saying, oh, you don't know what formation you want, you're flip-flopping on 4-3-3, it's not true. I've always wanted 4-3-3. However, there are moments in a season where you need to be tactically flexible, and especially when you're an inexperienced manager who thrived last season from being flexible and surprising opposition at times. It would be nice to see a formation that you're going to use when your wingers are never fit, or not fit very often. Eunice talks football. Love this guy. Collab with him often. We've got a big show coming up on Thursday, so much love. He says, Curtis, count how many times he slows the attack in the final third and takes a week to decide what to do. Also count how many crosses hit the first man. This is a great point. Does William take your corners?
Bruv, listen, the other day he took about 3 corners, didn't beat the first one. And then the fourth one, he just put it in the clouds. He kicked it way. And then I think Pepe took him off. Bruv, Willian, I mean, I feel like you've put him in the club on purpose to just ruin his life. I'm a double agent, fam. Like, I always knew Willian was frustrating, but I always thought, he's technically good. He puts a good cross in, he hits the odd free kick in the top corner. This guy can't hit a barn door for us, bruv. Seriously. He don't even look right in the red kit. He doesn't fit right with him. Like, I swear down, fam.
But I remember when he signed, and a lot of the fan base, and I have to shout at AFTV, you man were on to Willian, like, yo, it's like Willian. Do you know what I mean? And everybody was getting gassed better than ZS and all these things. We go back down that road. But Chelsea fans knew. We were sitting there like Prime Mbappe's just arms folded, like, yeah. Cool.
Bro, you know what I did? I got caught. when you're a fan of a team that's going through a bad time here, you try and cling on to some sort of positivity out of it. So I looked at it, I was like, Willian, not a bad squad player, blah, 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 but I thought we were giving him like a year deal, bro. When I heard he was getting 3 years, I was like, nah, come on, man. This guy's 32. Like, we give him like 150 grand a week or something mad. Like, deal was horrendous, bro. That deal was so bad, man. So bad.
Yeah. Do you know what? The thing is, is the only thing I can say is credit to Arteta for playing Saka at right wing. Saka's a player that I rate very, very highly before we get onto the rest of the transfer news. But Saka's a player I rate very highly. I mean, I remember when his contract was winding down, I did a video on Twitter trying to get him to Chelsea because I was like, yo, we need to pounce people. Do you know what I mean? I said, and to be honest, I still rate Saka. This is an unbiased point of view. I still rate Saka's potential higher than Chilwell. And at the time, that was the comparison I was making, where I was like, we could pay 50 million for Chilwell, who, fair play to him, has proven me wrong to an extent where he's had a very solid season for Chelsea, or we can get Saka running out of contract. I knew it wasn't realistic. Brothers playing for Arsenal, Hell's End and all and whatnot. Do you know what I mean? Coming through the youth, it's the equivalent of you trying to take Mason Mount from us. But I was like, yo, when I have a target and I love them that much, similar with Sancho a couple years back,
right away,
ride or die. I'm just like, yo, this is Saka. We need to go out there because he's a great player. He's a great prospect, and I knew from the moment that I saw him last season coming through your team, I said this is a player where it's not about position, it's just about
getting in.
Yeah. Baller. Like same with Reece James, where yes, he's a right back, but we've seen him play midfield for Wigan, and we've seen him as an inverted right back, and he can cross in different types of ways, and he's a shooter from long range. Great goal against Brighton. Certain players are just ballers, and that's what I want at the club. Do you know what I mean? I want ballers. I don't want players where, of course, everyone's got weaknesses and parts of their game they need to craft. When you've got a baller like Saka where he can play right wing, left wing back, left back, centre mid, it don't matter. Do you know what I mean? Because the brother's he's just on another level. So I tried, like I said, people, we couldn't get it done. Do you know what I mean? We couldn't get it done. There's more news. Do you know what I mean? Ins for both of us. So we have to get onto that for the last part of the show. This is mainly to cover the transfers, but obviously, man, when it's talking football, we just spiral into loads of different things. We had a sick combo. Upamencano and Buendia, Arsenal, Chelsea alike, links coming into the club. I mean, I guess I start with Upamencano just because, for me, it's an interesting one. There's a £40 million release clause reportedly, apparently. Chelsea, this would be a summer deal, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong, chat, but that's what I think it would be. Chelsea looking for another young centre-back. Now, it's an interesting one, and I want to get your take on centre-backs, because I know Arsenal were tracking him as well previously, because you guys were always after a centre-back. Before you got Gabriel, who's another really good-looking player, and I think he's got potential as well. But then, you was always looking for a centre-back because you were having the Chambers, the Holdings, the Louise last season and whatnot. It was stinky. I can't lie, it was stinky defence. It was a raggedy defence, you know what I mean? It was a stinky defence. Now you're putting a couple pieces together with Tierney and whatnot that I like. I think the left-hand side is looking good. Right side, not so much. But you was looking at Upamencano as well. He's had a few standout, really good games in a Leipzig shirt. The Tottenham game, him and Ampadu looking good. But Champions League game where they played well, and I think they knocked Tottenham out in the end as well. But with Upamencano as well, I do worry because, first of all, Thiago Silva is getting on. I feel like if you're picking someone to partner Thiago Silva, then fair enough. Do you know what I mean? Then that's probably something that will work very well. 2 ball-playing centre-backs, and he can learn off Thiago. Because Thiago, for me, has only got this season, probably next season, max at the top level with us. I mean, I love it to go longer, but he is getting on. So it's just being realistic. Signing another young defender is a little bit. It's a weird one for me. I thought we would go after an experienced one because we have the likes of Mark Guehi coming through. Tomori we spoke about as well. So many others going through as well. I can't even. Ampadu again. It's a rough one. We don't know what's going to happen with him there. So Mbiamba as well from Barcelona. So there's so many different players coming through the ranks, and I'm just like, do we need a young centre back? And every time I've looked at Upamencano, I've said to myself, he's very good ball playing, very good at carrying the ball up from the back, but at times he has looked clumsy as well. He's still learning the game, but he has looked clumsy. He has, looked a bit rash with his tackling and rash with his positioning. I've worried. I think Leipzig as well at times have played back three, or I'm pretty sure predominantly play a back three. So how does he translate to a back four? There's always worries in my head when we go for a player from a different system as well. Can they go into a back four comfortably, seamlessly? What's your take on Upamencano? Because obviously he's doing well in the German league. 40 million is not a lot, so I can understand the investment. It's an interesting one. I don't know.
I mean, yeah, we tracked him for a while. I think we had a massive offer turned down for him, like 60 million or something, but he never. I don't think he had no release clause in his contract at the time. When I look at, if I'm just looking at Chelsea as an outsider, I'm thinking, I think Zuma, part of him improving has been because he's had such an experienced leader next to him in Thiago Silva. If I was putting Zuma next to Upamecano, I think I'm not sure about that because, like you said, Upamecano is a little bit rash. He's a very good young talent. But then you see like the Man United game when they beat Leipzig 5-0, you know, he was diving in, Rashford skipping past him and stuff like that. I think he's very keen on winning the ball very quickly. And you know, I think the problem is that there just aren't many top-level centre-backs out there now when you look around Europe at a good age as well. So I think Upamecano, you know, at that kind of price, I think 40 million release clause or 42 million, you know, clubs are going to look at him, and I believe he's in his early 20s as well. So I'm not surprised that Chelsea are looking at him. I think he'll definitely leave Leipzig this summer. I think, you know, that'll be the point where he moves on. You know, if Bayern Munich let him come out of Germany, that kind of would concern me because I feel like Bayern Munich at the moment don't let anyone leave Germany.
It's like at the airport, they're like, I don't know if you can go, bro.
I'll say like they look
at a monopoly with them.
Like 100 million, yeah, we're not going to entertain that. But I feel like Upamecano, you know, with Boateng leaving in the summer, you would have thought Bayern Munich would be all over that. So look,
they are linked. They are linked. So
they are.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because when Bayern Munich go for a player, I'm not going to lie, your confidence in the player does go up a little bit because they are so well informed with themselves tactically in terms of they know what they want. And this is another player I was just about to mention. Thank you for the chat there. You know, Bayern Munich do tend to get it pretty spot on with the players that they go after. Talent-wise, their talent ID, their scouting is so good. You know what I mean? That's why, I was raving about Hudson-Odoi before Bayern were interested, but that's why I kept pushing Hudson-Odoi. I said, listen, guys, he's coming back from a big injury. I know he's not fully polished in every area, but he is a serious talent. We cannot afford to let him go. And in recent weeks, we're starting to see, you know, bear it be impacts off the bench against, you know, Man City, against Arsenal, but he's making a difference. Do you know what I mean? He's showing himself to be a difference maker in games and to be providing an outlet. And I've said it, you know, Bayern Munich don't just chase anyone. So if Bayern Munich are seriously interested in Upamecano, that is a very good point in his favour as a centre back. I mean, for me, he's not my top target. He's one of those players where I wouldn't be annoyed if we signed him because I've always said this. I do like, even though Chelsea are not going after not every single player they've got is my top target in that position. I do like the strategy. We're not going after Fernando Llorentes and, do you know what I mean, like we used to, and Andy Carrolls, and we used to be targeting old man as well. Do you know what I mean? 30 plus and whatnot, which is cool. But again, you don't hand 3-year deals to 30 plus man for the reason that you see with Willian. So I like the fact that they're going with young players with potential and they have a ball playing ability aspect to them as well. They can kick it about. And we're looking to play possession football. So even though it's not my top target, I can see the direction. And like I said, there's a lot of players from the Bundesliga coming to Chelsea. And that only tells me that if, you know, hopefully Lampard gets it right, because no one wants anything more than that for Lampard to get it right. Lampard winning the Premier League of Chelsea is the pinnacle. It doesn't get any better.
Guys, isn't it? Of course, he's a legend of your club as well.
Pinnacle. Like if that could happen, or for me, I'll take the FA Cup this season, and that's amazing. Do you know what I mean? I take that competition so seriously. Like, people don't, but I really do, because like I said,
do you think if Frank doesn't get top 4, they would get rid of him?
I've said this on my streams where I don't think it would be acceptable for him to finish below where he finished last season. I know this season's a freak season, which is why I'm saying top 4 would be, you know, it's not the dream, it's not the pinnacle, but I think it would be good, because it will still be an okay good season, because taking everything into account, the freak season, the inexperience that he has dealing with these circumstances, The fact that, yes, we know our players haven't been utilised the way that potentially we would have wanted, but they are still adapting. They have been proven to do. And for me, personally, not everyone can see it, but I can still see what he's trying to put together in terms of the different players that he signed and the pieces. I can still see, in my head, I can see the moves that can be played, the link-ups that can be, and the chemistry that can be formed between players. I can see patterns of play that can be established with the players that he's signing. It's just not come to fruition yet. So I still believe that he can get the team playing in a way where I'm like, yes, this is what we want. Ziyech, making those outward switching balls to runners like Werner, like Chilwell, Havertz, if he's in the box for the crosses from Reece James and the crosses from Aspilicueta, like we saw in the weekend, with another player in that box as well, hopefully it's Giroud, because he is very good with his head out of our strikers. There are things where I'm like, okay, cool, I can see where this team could go. But if you don't reach Champions League football, which would be a big issue, because we're trying to make progress, and 4th to 5th is not progress. Do you know what I mean? When you've got a better squad, so then potentially maybe they would look at a German manager, and then all of these Bundesliga imports would make sense as well. So I just hope that he can. My hope for him is that he wins the FA Cup, gets top 4, and then next season, God bless, the fans are back in the stadium. It's a normal season. Mad congestion, gets a pre-season as well. You cannot underestimate how much an inexperienced manager needs a pre-season. Like these other managers like Ancelotti, you've been able to come into Everton and just implement what they want immediately off rip. That's because they've implemented it 3-4 times in the past already. He knows James Rodriguez from back in the day. It's not difficult. Do you know what I mean? Ancelotti's one of the greatest managers in the world. Do you know what I mean? He's one of the few managers that have been able to come through like era after era after era and still keep up. Do you know what I mean? And still make these tweaks and adapt from the diamond at AC Milan and Chelsea to what you're seeing with Everton right now with the pivot and whatnot. So he's been able to adapt and continue to progress as a manager. And not everyone can do that. A lot of managers get left behind. But he's so experienced that of course he can take his methods to the team quicker. Lampard in a respect where he's brought in a lot of new players, no pre-season, to implement what you want. Again, a lot of people say Southampton, Aston Villa, what about their managers? 100%. Like I said, I've always said Lampard is not only learning on the job, he's also not even probably top 7 managers in the league. Let's be real. Do you know what I mean? On a purely tactical and knowledgeable standpoint, he can't be. It's not possible. Like, you'd be lying to yourself if you said Lampard was top 7 managers in the league. He's not. But let's get, do you know what I mean? Let's get the bare minimum, like you said earlier in the show. Let's get the bare fundamentals and the standards, bare minimum Champions League football and FA Cup, and then hopefully, if you get a pre-season, you can start to see that things are going in a good direction, and you can get the best out of the team.
At the start of the season, I'm being honest here, I tipped Chelsea for the top 4. I thought, I looked at the players you'd signed, and I thought, even if 2 or 3 of them hit the ground running, surely you should get top 4.
Yeah.
When I saw Chelsea play against Arsenal, now I'm not making that as the benchmark for how your season's gone, but just in that game, you had Werner on the left, which, I mean, I don't know, for me that doesn't work. That just, to me, that just looked like a striker playing on the wing.
Yeah.
And then you had Pulisic on the right.
On the right.
He's better on the left. I actually think, as an outsider, I think he's one of the best players at Chelsea. Like, every time we play Chelsea, when he gets the ball, I'm like, problems. Like, this guy is dangerous. On the right, I think, obviously, Pulisic was on the right. You brought Hudson-Odoi on last 15 minutes. He ripped us up. You scored, you won a penalty. You nearly came back from 3-0 down. I was thinking, why is he not on the right? Pulisic on the left. Whether it's Giroud or Timo Werner through the middle. I'm not a big fan of Tammy, to be honest. But, and I just thought, he looks like a manager that's got too many options, which is why I was like, last season, it was like, you've got to work with these young players, work with what you've got. And he just focused on coaching. Now I feel like he's got too many things. He's chopping and changing. Every time I watch Chelsea, I'm like, I don't know what team you're going to pick. I don't know what front three is going to be. I think your defense is pretty solid in, James, Chilwell, Thiago and Zuma or whatever. Mendy and goal is decent. Kante, there's a lot of questions about him. What role is his best role? Like, what do you think about Kante, like, at Chelsea now?
with Kante, I've always said, people said earlier when he was in great form this season, we're getting the best out of Kante again. This will never be the best of Kante for me.
Yeah.
In this spot, this lone DM spot, that will never be the best of Kante. Now, maybe Kante can continue to adapt to the role and he gets better and better in it. And he's shown times where he's been very good in the role, and other times, like against Arsenal, Man City, where he's been very poor against top opposition, especially when pressed. This was an issue that I had where I was like, is he the perfect person to get us out of those tough moments? And also, I spoke about it in a good way, but also now it's becoming a problem where, okay, Kante's build-up play may not be so much of an issue because you have the likes of Kai Havertz and Ziyech, and I said this months ago, that can drop deep and help him with build-up and get on the ball. That's been happening. Kai Havertz has been extremely deep. But now I'm thinking to myself, hold on a second, we don't want this happening all the time. We need Kai Havertz in the box. Do you know what I mean? We need Kai Havertz higher up the field because that's his strength. So even though Kai Havertz has been dropping deep to shield one of Kante's weaknesses, which for me would be build-up play and, finding those cut-throat passes through the channels and through the lines, and that's not his job because Kante is the disruptor. He's the person to win the ball back, give it short, and that's the destroyer. And then you give it to a Kai Havertz. But Kai Havertz has been dropping so deep where if we had a more rounded defensive midfielder, not necessarily a better overall defensive midfielder, just someone more rounded in the fact that they can pass long range and they can, again, it's not just about switching play. It's about fine-tuning those passes in between the lines to find the eights in higher positions. Mason Mount, I'm not too concerned with him being high, but Havertz especially needs to be to impact the game and to impact the final third because we need goals in the team as well. And he's meant to be, for me, in the box. So because Kante's been playing so, in that anchor role, defensively, at times we're looking great. He shields, he's great in transition. He gets back, he's over, doesn't matter how many yards it is, as long as the brother's fully fit and he's not overworked, which is another issue. We overplay him. Potentially, that's why concentration drops down and levels drop as well. We don't have anyone to rotate him with. Thank God Gilmore's back now. And Chelsea have been looking at a DM. But at times we overuse him and then these concentration issues come into play as well. And then, for me, El Ghazi, the goal for Aston Villa, I felt like he could have been on his case a bit more, but he let him run off him. Man City, let's not lie, we was pulled apart. Do you know what I mean? We was absolutely dismantled and dispatched. Yeah. So, I've always flagged issues with Kante in this role, not because I don't rate him. I rate Kante immensely highly. How can you not? World class. Double pivot with Drinkwater, title with Leicester, World Cup with France, double pivot with MAH. But double pivot. Always for me, prime, best Kante, double pivot. Always. Agreed. Issue with Chelsea is that we don't have a partner for him. We've tried Jorginho, we've tried Cover. It doesn't work. None of them work. Haven't tried Gilmore yet, to be fair, so maybe that's something. But I do prefer 4-3-3. So we're caught in many different minds and situations where it's a difficult one. But he's a player that, regardless of what's going on, still a top player at times. But I think as he gets older, it's not just about him changing position. Like a lot of people say he needs to anchor. He needs to also see less game time. Because when he's at his best, not a problem. But when we're playing him game after game after game, no other alternative, then we have an issue. And that's when things start to get ropey. But I do worry from a passing perspective if we could be better as well. Because it's very rare that you see Chelsea going behind, make those through balls. I've read this stat off so many times. Bruno Fernandes more through balls than Chelsea. I don't know if it's still relevant, but it was a couple of weeks back, and that's worrying.
And that's what Werner needs, isn't it? He's desperate for that.
Exactly.
Every time I see him, he's got his back to goal, and I'm like, that's kind of what was happening with Aubameyang. It's like you watch all his goals for Dortmund, a little through ball, he's one-on-one, and Werner, you see him running onto things, and it's like, I think with Chelsea as well, you look at, you got Mendy in goal, Thiago, Chilwell, Havertz, Ziyech, Werner. That's 6 new players. That's more than half a team in one transfer window.
Yeah,
you're trying to integrate all that together, all different languages, all coming from different parts of the world at different points in their career. To get that together quickly to work, I think there's always going to be bumps in the road, and I think Lampard's just got to figure out kind of what works best for the team rather than kind of always doing what he wants to do. I think sometimes a manager has to adjust to the team a little bit. You might have a certain plan, but they might need something else.
Yeah.
And I think he needs to, put Pulisic on the left for one.
Please, God.
I mean, what do you think about the striker situation? Because Werner is a player that I like. He's clearly struggling to adapt, but you know, when Giroud plays, sometimes I feel like that offers you better balance. But naturally, he wants Werner to play. You know, he paid a lot of...
I think also the pressure of playing Werner because he's a new signing and you got to show that it's working. But as you've said, sometimes you've just got to prioritize also your job over playing Werner, because I've been immensely frustrated over the last few months. You know, Werner gets a goal against Morecambe, cool, but not much changes in retrospect. He's been poor on the left wing. Either move him or utilize him differently or don't play him. But it's just been the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. Werner very much involved in build-up play, very deep in the left channel, where really the only way he can thrive in the left channel is to play on the last shoulder. Yeah. Aubameyang played last shoulder at Arsenal left wing, got a lot of goals from the position. Vardy plays central, last shoulder, a lot of goals from the position. There's a lot of opportunity for Werner to get the goals long term, but short term, Chelsea don't play these through balls for the issues that we just spoke about. So sometimes you've got to just prioritize the short term and keeping your job and not continuing to just keep taking L's, and you can worry about Timo Werner later, because we need the points. He wants the point. Everybody wants points. Do you know what I mean? So we need to get winning as well. It's not just about Timo Werner here and just making sure that, we need to get him into the team. We need to win. And like you said, we're not getting the best out of him.
It's a crazy one, man. And like you said, Lampard's got to look after his job, and he's going to have some big decisions to make. It'll be interesting whether you bring anyone in this window. You know, will Abramovich give him more money to spend in January? Do you expect anyone to come in?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting because for me, Chelsea need to offload as well. So, we spoke about ins and outs, and we have one more out on Arsenal to touch on, which is going to be very interesting at the end. But it's very difficult for me to say we have to just keep signing more players. Of course, the team is never perfect, but we can't be ungrateful to the fact that we had a massive overhaul in the summer, signed like 7 starters or 7 new players, 7 new players in the transfer window. And half of them haven't been integrated yet. And there are players coming from different leagues and languages and whatnot. There is a method to the madness in the fact that Mendy speaks French, so does Thiago Silva, so does Zuma, so does Tomori. There's a French contingency being built in that defense. I like that. I like the fact that, communication-wise, leadership-wise, there's something being built in the back where, we can see a partnership developing. Same with up front, Timo Werner and Kai. There's a great friendship, great relationship with Germany. You can see there's a potential chemistry, a long-term thing that Chelsea want from them too. That being said, though, Chilwell, we know, he knows all the English boys, so we know that. Declan Rice is a target, same thing. So I can see the relationships building, the culture that's trying to be built, and I like it. But at the same time, we can't be like, just dash money at it, because we still have players that we haven't integrated yet. And on top of that, we've got unrest in the squad. Really, it's just players that can't get into the team that need to bounce. The likes of Alonso, the likes of Kepa, one of the centre-backs minimum, because we got 5 of them. Do you know what I mean? Just pure players that don't need to be here. And we need to trim the squad down. So for me, sometimes sales, and not even for money, just for squad space, is just as important as players coming in. Because when you've got a big squad, you can't entertain everyone. It's like having too many people at a party. Someone's going to get bored. Do you know what I mean? Because you can't entertain everyone. There's too many people. And there's a reason why a lot of top managers fixate on a squad of 14 or 15 real key men, because they just want to make sure that they know what we're doing. Do you know what I mean? They know how we're operating, and then the rest of them can come in whenever needed, rotation and whatnot in the cups. But I feel like right now our squad is just too big. So I would concentrate on the outgoings.
Yeah. Similar thing with Arsenal, bruv. Like, we got man like Socrates, Özil, Mustafi. If we can get them out, it freshens up the squad. And like you said, you need a tight-knit squad. You got too many big egos in the dressing room. It causes problems, especially for an inexperienced manager. You don't need that headache. So, I think with us, I don't think we'll do too much in January either.
Yeah. Big up Babs in the chat, my guy. Love that. But yeah, I mean, it's an interesting one, man, with these two clubs, because there's something there being built. Like I said, your transfer dealings, I've been impressed with a few of your signings. Your Gabriels, your Tierney's, your young players coming through. So it's very similar to us as well. But at the same time, we got to kick on. Do you know what I mean? We can't, because this league's competitive, bro. Things can get real sticky for our clubs if we don't make top 4. You know what I mean? You guys have obviously been Europa League for quite a few seasons, and I don't mean to put you in the gutter, but I use Arsenal as an example to Chelsea fans, I use it as an example where I say we can't let bare minimum standards drop, because if we do, and then it becomes a snowball effect, because you play Europa League football. Say Frank Lampard finishes 6th, we play Europa League football, and then you're doing that Thursday, Sunday, and maybe you can't attract the big names, and maybe we lose out. Because remember last season, people will forget, we got these big names, and that's why Havertz was kind of signed, because Real Madrid weren't in the running because of the disease and the money and the restrictions and whatnot. So we had to take advantage. Next season, everyone's probably back in the play. Do you know what I mean? Or getting near enough back into the play. You ain't got Champions League football. You start missing out on key targets. Suddenly, then you get in a rut, and then you're in a rumble, and suddenly it's kicking on season on season on season. And Chelsea, even still, last couple of years have been in and out of Champions League. So we're already there, where we're not always Champions League every season. We need to make sure that we hold a baseline of expectations and continue to hit that, so then we can continue to try and build from there. If you keep dropping, you're falling too far. Do you know what I mean? The final target I want to go through with you is an Arsenal one, and it's a player that I rate very highly. You know, created a lot of chances when he was in the Premier League, despite playing for a relegated Norwich. You know, Grealish and only Kevin De Bruyne for me that were more creative in the league. Very interesting player, and I have to say, reminds me of Santi Cazorla in a way. The fact that he goes both ways, he's a very good dribbler on the ball, gets into central areas and creates something out of nothing. Buendia. Do you know what I mean? And I saw your stream earlier, but I have to touch on it very quickly in the last, 5-10 minutes. What's your take? Because he's a very good, maybe Özil replacement without being like for like. And surely you should be able to attract a man from Norwich as well.
Bro, I think the problem is we're in a window where the chairman seems to be saying that, we're not going to spend a lot of money. Norwich are, I believe, first or second in the championship. And, their chairman has said that's their best player. So he's not going to want to just sell him, just for the sake of selling him. They got the parachute payments. They sold Jamal Lewis. They sold Ben Godfrey. They made 40 million on those two. If you're the Norwich chairman now, you're going to turn around to Buendia and say, listen, just give me 6 months. Get this team back in the Premier League, and I'll let you go wherever you want. Now, the only way Arsenal get him is if they're aggressive, which they are not aggressive in the transfer. You know what I mean? We're the least aggressive team you could ever get. I see a rumor today, apparently they want 40 million for him. And Fabrizio Romano's saying we're about to make a £15 million offer. Well, how does that work?
Wow, Jesus.
They're not even offering 50% of what they want, bro. You know what I mean?
Arsenal always do this.
Yeah.
Dickheads. The board are dickheads when it comes to dealings, because they start offering, okay, we want 40. Okay, so we'll offer you 15 and a player. It's like, I know you got to negotiate, but don't take the piss.
No, I mean, if you're going to buy a car for 10 grand, you don't turn up with 4 grand, do you? You ain't going to get the deal. You might get it for 7 or 8 or something, but
exactly.
We're just horrible in the market, man. But no, Buendia, I think the thing what's strange is why no one went for him in the summer. He got them great stats. I think just a couple of things that went against him. He only scored 1 goal. And there was also a lot of rumours that as Norwich were kind of looking relegated, he kind of took his foot off the gas a little bit, which I can understand. But from managers, they might have looked at it and just said, can he produce that all season? I think Arsenal, if they can get the deal done at the right price, 20, 25 maybe, to me, if we put 22, 23 on the table, they're going to reject it. But then you want to see that situation where he starts playing up a little bit. He wants a meeting, come on, I got you lot promoted. Give me the opportunity. He's not even a full international yet for Argentina.
Yeah.
So he's thinking, look, if I go to Arsenal, have a good 6 months, all of a sudden you're in the Argentina squad by the summer. So I think there's a deal there to be done, but the way we negotiate, I wouldn't be. Nah, you might see us go and get, we're being linked with like Draxler and them, man, who we was looking at like 5 years ago. You know what I'm saying? Like Julian Brandt and Isco and them, man, there. So I wouldn't be surprised if we bring a man like that.
When you got to go back into the filing cabinet for old targets back in the day, you're not serious.
On the stream today, we're being linked with Steven and Zonzi. We tried to sign him about 4 years ago.
Blackburn boy, and then he went to Sevilla. Yeah, old days. Yeah,
Sevilla though. And I said, yo, has Arteta like gone in the wrong filing cabinet? Like, Arsene Wenger tried to buy him in 2014, and you got Steven and Zonzi. Like, yo, we're a different club, man. Like, at least you as Chelsea, when it's time to try and fix a problem. Roman's going to get the checkbook out. You're going to really try and fix it. We're just putting plasters over it until the blood, comes out again, bro. We're a different team, fam. Our owner, we would do anything to have an owner like Roman Abramovich, man. That's the difference.
Arsenal kind of remind me of that team where, well, they're kind of that person. If Arsenal were a person, it's like the cut is healing and there's a scab. It don't look great, but give it time and it will heal. And then Arsenal just come and pick off the scab and then it starts bleeding again. They're like, yo, what's going on?
You know what I mean? When Chelsea get hurt, they're straight in the ambulance. There's your stitches, 7 days, a bit of cocoa butter and the scar's gone. You know what I mean? Arsenal, man, we're mad. We're a mad club, bro. The way we move. And, the thing what winds me up so much is like our fan base is so divided. And I'm like, listen, whether you're Arteta in, Arteta out, you want Özil there or not, why can we not try and put real pressure on these owners? Because these owners are holding this club back so much. But the fan base is so divided, man. When the whole Wenger situation occurred, man, there was a lot of damage done in the fan base and it's still not repaired, man. So we're going to have a long road, man, road.
I mean, I think you're Wenger, and this is I guess this is a similar parallel to finish with, but the damage done under Wenger, but the way it was drawn out, he was here for so long, and that meant that the conflict was drawn out and so long as well between Wenger in and Wenger out in the ground, but also online as well. It's kind of similar to how Chelsea, where it wasn't drawn out, it was very small, but I feel like Sarri, Lampard, and Conte, this change at Chelsea, where it's not the same because you guys have one, legendary manager, let's be real. And there's a lot of emotion involved and attachment for people, and they didn't really know which way to go. A lot of people were saying, okay, cool, you want him out, but be respectful about it. And I agree with that because, it's very clear that Wenger wasn't the main problem. Yes, he was an issue, 100%. I think, he did shield up for some of the madness that went on the board, but at the same time, the board is always at Arsenal the main issue, because they're the guys that continue to suck the life out of the club. They're the guys that continue to underinvest. They're the guys that continue to tolerate, expectations that are not where Arsenal used to be. They're happy to just meet European football to keep the bank balance ticking over. You got an owner that's in America who don't really give two shits. Do you know what I mean? He's focused on their team winning, and he doesn't really show no love over here. So for me, I've always said this, there's a ceiling to where Arsenal can reach. I talk about foundations, but there's a ceiling to where Arsenal can reach with that owner. I can't see you guys winning a Prem or a Champions League with that man in charge. It's just, I don't think the rest of the league would let it happen. But we had a similar issue where we have, in a different sense, where we've had 3 managers in 3 years with completely different ideologies. And some fans have taken a liking to, the pragmatic approach from Conte. Some fans have taken a like to the stylistic approach from Sarri. Lampard, in the hope, in my opinion, I was hoping he would be in between the two, a good in between, to the fact where, yes, the defense is now getting taken care of by Barry, but we're still going to try and play attacking, free-flowing football. And Lampard was really meant to bring the fan base together. But unfortunately, there is, even still online, I'd say in the ground, it wouldn't be like that so much, but never know what a losing run can do. Suddenly the ground is not such a happy place. Do you know what I mean? No matter who's in charge. But there's a lot of people have got themselves involved with the way that Sarri was kicked out of the club maliciously before he was actually decided to leave to Juventus. There was chants of Sarri out and, people saying, fuck Sarri ball and booing own players. And there's a lot of hypocrisy that goes around. And that's why the Chelsea fan base is very divided, despite Lampard being there, because people don't like hypocrisy from old, saying back this manager, but you didn't want to back the last one. And it's nuts. So that's where we can relate. Do you know what I mean? And that's a great place to end it. The conclusion is, people, is that both our clubs are a little bit of a mess.
Especially ours, but yeah.
Hopefully the comeback is strong.
We're not far behind you are we in the league, considering we've lost 8 games already?
Bro, it's 3 points, I swear. 3 points between Chelsea and Arsenal. Who would have thought it? Do you know what I mean? A couple of weeks ago, if you had told me that Arsenal were going to be 3 points behind Chelsea like a month ago, I would have laughed. Because no one ever thought Arsenal were getting relegated, but we still bantered about it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
it made for a great title. I actually never got to take advantage of the title. So credit to the man that did. That got their clicks. I never got to even write Arsenal may get relegated, question mark.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's getting real sticky, man. 3 points is the gap. So must-win games coming up for Chelsea, 100%. People, Curtis, let them know where they can find you, man. It's been an absolute pleasure.
I appreciate it, bro. Curtis Shaw TV, just come over, man. Daily uploads, 2 p.m. watch-alongs and that. We're just building, man. But I appreciate you inviting me on, and I like what you're doing, man. Just keep building the channel, and we'll work again at some point in the future, definitely.
100%, bro. Keep it up. Do you know what I mean? Like I said, you're doing great things. It's great to see. It's great to see actually different levels of YouTube, because we've obviously seen, we've seen loads of parts of YouTube when it comes to fandom. We've seen rants. We've seen not rants the person, like rants as in, what I mean, ranting about the club and stuff. We've seen tactical stuff, but it's also good to see someone that's a former player come in and take in as well, and now give their perspective. So that's helpful. So yeah, man, big up, and people, make sure you go subscribe. Do you know what I mean? And show the love. Do you know what I mean? Like I said, make sure that someone sent you there. Do you know what I mean? Let them show that. You know what I mean? The chat's lively. Go over there, subscribe. Make sure that you're joining in with the live shows, because I think it's important, even if you're a fan of Chelsea or a fan of whoever, to follow other club content is important, because you get different perspectives. Do you know what I mean? That's why I had Curtis on, because I could have had a journalist, or, you know what I mean? But for me, it's just, I don't like to just have constant just Chelsea views. I want to have other fans come in who are not going to be biased, but also they're going to give their take, because it allows us to debate, and it allows us to talk about the club from an unbiased standpoint. So people, I'll see you tomorrow. We've got our usual London's Carnage show for a weekly there. And like I said, in a bit, big up to the chat. Do you know what I mean? You guys have been lit for us. And I'll see you guys tomorrow. Peace.
Yeah, man. Bless.